Yeah, sorry, I got disconnected there. So there's, sorry, the what I've said before is that two halves don't always make a whole. You can't take two half persons and make them into a whole person. And this, there was a story, there was a book about this. There's one of those New Age books that talked about this. The Celestine Prophecy, I think, was brought this up, and it talks about people who grasp for other people as being half persons, not being whole in and of themselves, which is really an interesting philosophy, and it mirrors, I think, Buddhism quite well. That you can't expect to find happiness outside of yourself. This is something that we're being lied to. We're being taught things that are false. The idea that happiness is going to come from other people. That true happiness is, because the idea of a person is something totally conceptual. All we have really is our experiences at seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, and thinking. We come up with the idea of the other person in our own minds. It's an illusion that we give rise to. And based on this fact, it leads to all sorts of clinging, and it can only, in the end, lead to disappointment and dissatisfaction. Because when the truth changes, when that person dies or gets old, or when reality becomes different from your illusion, from your concept, which it has to do, then you will suffer. You will be upset and disappointed. It's bound up with attachment, really. That's really the point, no? You attach to something and you say, this is preferable to something else. You can philosophize about it all you want and say that, we need to find you can use words like life partners, or all the sorts of words that you're using, and it sort of makes it seem like there's some meaning to it, right? Or there's some importance to it. But actually all that it is a craving. It's an attachment. It's an attachment to pleasure. And there's many different causes of that pleasure. The pleasure of just having someone to support you because you feel weak, because you're not strong in and of yourself. The pleasure of physical contact, the pleasure of safety, the pleasure that comes from conversation, from interacting with other people. It's something that we enjoy, and because we enjoy it, we cling to it, we want it more, and we wind up expecting it. And the workings of the brain are a really good indicator of the truth of this, because if you look at addiction research, as I've talked about before, you can see how this process is working in the brain. The chemicals in the brain are released, and they attach to these receptors, and therefore it gives pleasure. And that's great, except the next time the receptors have been weakened or have been broken, or it's like it's been overstretched. The system has been overtaxed. And as a result, it requires more chemicals than last time. So more stimulus than last time. It's really, from a Buddhist point of view, it's because of the accumulated force. The addiction stacks on top of each other, and it becomes worse and worse. So when you have this much addiction, and you go for it, and you chase after the things that you're attached to, you're stacking on more addiction. And because you have now this much addiction, you need more, it needs more food, right? It's like this monster is getting bigger. And when the monster gets bigger, it needs more food. It's the power of the addiction and the habit. You're creating a stronger habit, a stronger addiction. And well, you can see how that works in the brain, but it's exactly how it works in the mind. So when your happiness is based on these sorts of things, and really anything external to yourself, or anything external, any object is only going to, the only happiness it can bring you is one that is rooted in attachment, rooted in addiction. And as a result, it can never satisfy you. So that's part of what you're, hopefully addresses part of what you're asking, but I think the other important thing to mention here is in regards to your example, that there are a lot of people out there who want to have a partner, but are suffering because they cannot find one. And this is a mistake that we often make, the making the wrong connection, that we are suffering because thank you. Oh, good. Thank you. Give to the woman. No, she needs. Thank you. Flashlights came. Sorry, I'll get to your question in a second, just to finish up this one. So we say we're suffering because we don't get what we want, and the Buddha said himself, "Yampi chang nalabati tampi dukang." When you, whatever you want, not getting that is suffering. So we think, well, yeah, then how do you get what you want, right? What can we do to get what we want? Because not getting it is, man, it sure is suffering. But the point here is not that you're not getting what you want. The point here is that you want. What the Buddha was saying actually is that wanting things sets you up for suffering, because when you don't get what you want, you suffer. So he was kind of, I think it's quite clear that he was taking it for granted, the understanding that you can't always get what you want. Now, it was kind of like, well, hopefully you don't believe that you can always get what you want, and given that you don't believe that you can always get what you want, then wanting is going to set you up for suffering. And that's why the second noble truth is the cause of suffering, is craving or desire. Because, and this is really the key of the Buddha's teaching. If you learn about Buddhism and what the Buddha taught, you'll learn that the second noble truth is the cause of suffering is craving. So it's not that people are not suffering because they can't find a partner. They're suffering because they want to find a partner in the first place. And what it translates, what it means, the essence of it is they're not content with their lives. They're not content with reality. They're not balanced. They're not here and now. They're not in tune with things as they are. They don't have the understanding yet of the reality around them, which, it's not to say they're bad people. This is the state that we're all in. So I'm not trying to say that, these people are inferior in some way. This is how we are. What I'm trying to do is sort of flesh out what is the path that we should take. We can either try to find a way so that we always get what we want, or we can try to find a way so that we have no more wants, no more wanting. It's both the same goal. The goal in mind is to not have any more wanting. Either you get everything that you want and are totally satisfied, or you give up wanting and are in the same way totally satisfied. But as I've said, the problem is that it may sound logical that way, but reality is something totally different. You can't become satisfied by always getting what you want. It's impossible. You're developing the habit of craving, the habit of addiction. If you go the other way and develop the habit, the way of contentment, then you'll be developing more and more contentment until eventually you're content with everything, and as a result you have no more wanting. So that way actually works. They're not parallel and they don't both work.